I have something to read from, let's find it here. This is from, he couldn't be here tonight, he has to be in Clarion, had to be in Clarion at 7. This is, okay, I'll start at the beginning. It says, my name is Rusty Dodds. I'm sorry I could not attend this evening due to a previous engagement. I believe the testimony of what I have witnessed is valuable information worth putting on the table for airing concerns. At the radio station WAWN 89.5, the producers of the documentary, Joe Wilson and Dean Hamer, arrived at the radio station in Franklin and asked the station manager, Jane Ritchie, if she would be willing to answer some questions on camera for the documentary, to which she declined to speak on film, but said she did not mind to answer questions off camera. Rusty, I was sitting in the production studio adjacent to the reception area of the station with the door open where I could see Joe and Dean. Jane was a little uncomfortable and asked if the camera was indeed off, which both Dean and Joe assured her that indeed it was off. I noticed that Dean was holding the camera at his side, but would occasionally look down to adjust his angle in an upward fashion toward Jane. I also noticed a red light, which was on. I thought that it meant it was recording. Noticing this and being aware of Joe and Dean both assuring Jane it was off, I moved out into the reception area and stood in front of the camera, blocking its ability to record any video. You didn't see any of that. None of that was on the camera. But the World Heritage Parade 2006, which is actually the first time that Joe and Dean were able to get me on camera. Previously to that, of course, their announcement was in the paper in April, May 2004. And Dean, or not Dean, but Joe started making phone calls to those who had written letters to the editor. And I had written a letter to the editor. He's targeted, at least I believe he targeted the ones who he believed were expressing concerns about the paper having that wedding announcement in the paper. So he called my home phone, and we talked several times. We probably talked 2 to 3 hours total. And each time I refused to be part of the documentary. So it was World Heritage Parade 2006, where that is on the video, and that was the first time they got me on camera. But this is Rusty again. AFA of Pennsylvania attended the World Heritage Parade with informational banners, I believe put that, to assist Mr. Rendell in constituent communications. Not at his request, of course, but we wanted him to know some of the things we knew. During most of the parade, Mr. Rendell was accompanied by Joe Wilson and Dean Hamer and their trusty camera. When near the end of the parade, Joe and Dean spotted Diane Gramley. They left the governor's side. They swooped down on Diane, and what I mean by that is that they took place of her shadow. Joe at her side with mic in hand and asking question after question, while Dean was within inches of the back of Diane's head and face with the camera. Diane did well at handling herself in the midst of intimidation and harassment. And then talking about the National Day of Prayer event, which we used, that's about the closing scene in the documentary. At the National Day of Prayer event, Joe showed up, passed out flyers, and I happen to have those flyers. Passed out flyers, and
remember when the cross was used to promote discrimination against
look at the flip side too.
People of color. Let's not use it today to promote the same attitude toward people who are gay. The bigotry of Jane Ritchie and Diane Gramley. Anti-family.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Un-Christian, un-American, bad for the community's future.
And Jane Ritchie is a station manager of WAWN. Anyway, Joe passed those out. He filmed the attendees as well as the presenters. It's a free country, at least for now. But he crossed the line as the event had come to a close and Diane left to go home, with Joe again replacing her shadow as they did at the World Heritage Parade the year before. within inches of her physical person and badgering question after question the entire walk to her car. Others who witnessed this inquired as to what was going on, and they were disgusted that any person would have to be put through such treatment. Then as far as at our church, Joe came to our church, it was either the Sunday or a couple Sundays after I testified at the House State Government Committee meeting, hearing actually, in the hearing where I first met CJ, came to our church to inquire as to why I hated. They would ask folks as he left church why I hated. So this was the one, this is Rusty again, this was the one instance that made me begin suggesting to Diane that she file harassment charges. Then he goes into details. One Sunday afternoon, I was returning home from church and was at the last intersection before my home when it would make a left-hand turn to go home. I noticed to the right, out in front of Fox Street Church of God, Joe Wilson was waiting outside the church with camera and microphone in hand. I just sat at the stop sign at this intersection, dumbfounded at what I was witnessing. Church must have still been going on as the parking lot was full and Joe was the only person visible. So I turned right and drove up to Joe and said, "Joe, come on, don't you think this is going a bit too far?" To which he got excited to see some activity, put his camera on me, and began asking me questions, to which I said, "This is wrong, what you're doing here, and you ought to pack up and leave." Seeing that he had no intention of leaving, I drove down the road to turn around and parked between Joe and the church, waiting for Diane to come out. And when she did, I escorted her to her car, keeping my car between the circus and Diane. We discovered later that, that those flyers have also been placed on car windshields. So that was Rusty Dodd's testimony as to what some of the stuff we went through in the filming of this documentary.
It seemed obvious in the documentary that you were blindsided a few times, like the hearing in Erie. You know, it certainly seemed as though when you walked in the building, they were, "Gotcha," you know, get the camera going, whatever.
Well, actually, in that case, I had a feeling that Joe indeed may be there. So when I first walked in, actually Jane went with me. She rode shotgun, shall we say? And when I first walked in there, I walked up to Joe, extended my hand, and we shook hands. I said, "How you doing?" Met CJ. We talked a little bit to CJ at that point, and unfortunately, all that was cut out of the video when in the final cut. And then when we went into the hearing, and I was the only one who testified opposing the bill. Everyone else testified in support of it, including CJ's mom, and CJ was there with him at the table. We talked to CJ and his mom, as well as Stephen Glassman, the chairman of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, and Dean was there, and Joe was there with the camera. So we talked to them 25 minutes, again with CJ all in there, and all that's cut out. None of it's in there. It's as if I walk into the library, breeze past Joe and past CJ, and don't acknowledge any of them, and and then we spend 20-25 minutes after the hearing talking to them and talking to CJ and telling him that what happened in the school was wrong and that no student should be forced to endure harassment. But again, that didn't make the final cut.